baby, breathe.
Game stolen by Rozier. 3-on-1 break for Boston. Rozier to the basket. Oh, blocked by James. He did it again.
All right, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of the Wall Street Journal podcast. This week, we got me and Rohith to recap the conference finals and then just give a quick preview of the NBA finals coming up. What's up, Rohith?
What's up, Ajay? Good to be on the podcast this week.
Yeah. I mean, it's a perfect time, right? Because now the conference finals are done and the NBA finals matchup is set. And before we go into the finals, what were your thoughts on the Eastern Conference Finals with the run that LeBron just made, dude?
Man, dude, I'm still recovering from that series. That was one heck of a series. I think I didn't think LeBron would make it out of this one. I mean, I thought this was where the road ends. I mean, Brad Stevens and those guys, especially in Game 1 and Game 2, it looked pretty bleak for the Cavs. And with the amount of the kind of supporting cast they had, it didn't seem very likely that they'd make it through. But I think down the stretch, I think the Cavs played a lot better defense in the second half of the series, and that was kind of the difference. But I was very stressed this series.
Yeah, I mean, I know sometimes you say that, like the Cavs are going to lose, and I don't always know if you're being completely honest when you think the Cavs are going to lose. But this time I felt like you actually did mean it. The Cavs' chances in this series was looking bleak, especially if they were down 2-0 and then down 3-2. But, I mean, ultimately they pulled it off. And you know what was the craziest part? Like, these guys lost their second best player, like Kevin Love, for pretty much all of Game 6, and then Game 7 he was out, and they still somehow pulled it out. I mean, LeBron's just something else, dude.
Yeah, dude. I think I think Kevin Love, while he can provide some scoring when he's like playing at his highest level, those other guys, Jeff Green, and even like Jordan Clarkson, and J.R. Smith, even in Game 7, some of those guys did step up at like key moments, and in Game 7 they provided just enough. Not that that's going to be enough help for LeBron in this next series, but Kevin Love, I think I think Kevin Love's impact on the series wasn't as important as people consider. You know how I get on Kevin Love's case pretty often, but I think he isn't what impacts the series more than the other guy. I think the other guys collectively are more important than Kevin Love.
Yeah, I mean, the way Jeff Green showed up. So, the biggest thing for me now, right, at the end of that game, Jeff Van Gundy on the ESPN broadcast was talking about how he considered this LeBron's biggest achievement or greatest achievement in his 15-year career, taking these group of guys to the finals. And then Doris asked LeBron in the post-game, and she's like, hey, LeBron, like, what do you think? Like, Jeff Van Gundy said this is your greatest achievement. And obviously LeBron, classy move by him. He didn't want to, like, shit on his teammates and throw him under the bus. And he's like, I'm not really, I don't want to talk about my teammates not showing up or whatever. He didn't, because if he said, yeah, this is my greatest achievement, he's pretty much admitting that these teammates sucked and he somehow dragged these guys to the finals. But I don't know, you've been following LeBron like your whole career. What do you think? Was this his greatest achievement?
This is up there for sure. I mean, for me, I think I didn't expect him to get to the finals this year. I mean, I think given the East and LeBron's reputation, I mean, you could have bet on him getting there relative to the other teams, given the inexperience and the injuries in the East this year. But I would say this ranks up there. I mean, I still can't put this above the 3-1 comeback against the Warriors, and this is up there. Like, I'd say this is top 3. I'd say probably still 3-1 Warriors is number 1. This is like tied like with 2A and 2B with the Pistons, beating the Pistons in that series and getting swept by the Spurs. This team is pretty much on par with that team, I'd say, and I think I'd put it at that. And I think whether or not this entire run, given it's year 15, I might give the edge to this series, but given it, we had to see the entire run and see how competitive he makes it against the Warriors this time, and then putting all that together, I think we can decide whether this was the best run. But this is like top 2 or top 3 in my opinion.
Yeah, and obviously if he somehow beats the Warriors in this coming round, then it has to be definitely his greatest achievement. Like if like by I think the last day of the finals, Game 7 is June 17th, but like let's say if we come out of these finals and LeBron's the winner, or like the Cavs are the winner, that just basically means LeBron had like a superhuman effort. Like there's no other way the Cavs could have beaten the Warriors unless LeBron does that. But more than like, so on the other side, right? So we had the Cavs coming out, 8 straight finals for LeBron. But I think what we saw with the Celtics is the youth in Game 7 is always a risky play, right?
Exactly. So I think the Celtics are tremendously coached. They're like a young team ahead of schedule. But I think, down the stretch, you could see Terry Rozier went ice cold in Game 7, and they scored a lot. They didn't score much in Game 7, and they went cold for long stretches of time. And I think that's just inexperience. And in those games, Game 7s are a completely different beast. As you watch basketball over the years, they're very different from other games, and it's much more of like a gritty basket. Every basket kind of counts. It's like a very possession to possession kind of game. So unless you've experienced enough of those, I think the inexperience comes into play. And the Celtics, if they had a Kyrie Irving, I think the series would have been most likely have gone the other way. But given that they still played their hearts out, Jason Tatum is going to be a generational talent. He's phenomenal. He played lights out every game of the series, at least at TD. And I think the Celtics have a lot to look forward to going forward.
Yeah, the best part about Game 7, best part for the Celtics is that all these guys like Terry Rozier and Jaylen Brown, they didn't show up, but man, Jason Tatum, he's the rookie, and he was clearly their best player for Game 7, and this guy just nothing phases him. He was ready from the get-go, and he was you saw that dunk on Braun, and then when he yelled at it, he got up in his face and yelled at him. And I think my favorite part was Braun just looked back at him. He's like, dude, relax, man.
Dude, yeah, no, Jason Tatum was special this series. Some of the shot making in the earlier games this series, Game 7 included, and especially the earlier games, he did not look like a 19-year-old. It was incredible. Can't believe the kid's 19. It's we can call him kids because we're we're 26 now.
I know. Yeah, because after the game, people are bringing out all these pictures, and it's the last time LeBron didn't make the finals, Jason Tatum was 12 years old, and he looked like a kid, and here we are, LeBron's still in the finals.
It's crazy. Yeah, all the stats about, what happened since LeBron wasn't in the finals. It's ridiculous, yeah.
I think the one that got me was Instagram wasn't invented.
Instagram wasn't invented. Dude, it's been an incredible run. I think the Celtics are definitely a team to be feared in the conference for years to come. If they keep their core intact, they're gonna be competitive. They add God forbids they add someone like Kawhi or something. It's gonna be very. They're gonna be a good team. Danny Ainge, as much as I dislike Danny Ainge, he's put together one hell of a crew out there.
Oh yeah. So I think an interesting point you made, right? You were just talking about how Game 7s are different. They're a completely different animal, beast, nothing like any of the other games. And I think the big part about Game 7 is how the referees usually just tend to let them play. Mm-hmm. And so this is something that we saw with the Rockets-Warriors Game 7 now, right? Mm-hmm. Where James Harden, these fouls and calls that he was getting all regular season, and now in Game 7, the refs, there were some very shady calls, and then obviously Twitter was exploding that the series was fixed, and the NBA wants Warriors-Cavs again and everything. But that definitely that threw the Rockets off their game, the fact that James Harden wasn't getting these calls in Game 7 that he was getting all year.
Yeah, no, I agree. Game 7, if you can see a visible difference between Game 7 and any other game in a series, the physicality, the lack of calls. And yeah, Harden is one of those guys that to get his rhythm going and to kind of get his team going, he needs to get those fouls. He needs to get to the free throw line 10 times a game to really get to his volume scoring. And I think you didn't see that in Game 7. But dude, to be honest, I did see a lot of calls that didn't go the Rockets' way, and it did throw them off their game. But at the end of the day, in that series, I think what it came down to was 0 for 27 from 3. That stat line, you can't no matter what happens. I think that in that particular game, that 0 for 27, you can't shoot bricks like that. Even the Rockets did have some good looks, a lot of contested looks, and the physicality may have played a part, but you can't throw up that kind of that many bricks and hope to advance to an NBA Finals, especially against a team like the Warriors.
Yeah, you can't miss 27-3. The Warriors are eventually going to get to you, but and this is something I was worried about the Rockets all year, where everyone's like, oh man, look at them, look at how all these threes they made. But then it's the Game 7, right? The pressure's different, and I think the home team always has more pressure on in a Game 7 because their crowd's really into it and they expect every shot to go in. But then guys like PJ Tucker, Trevor Ariza, Eric Gordon, all these guys, they've never been in a Game 7 of a Western Conference Finals, and the pressure I think just got to them. That's what happened. And even Harden, he was missing threes too. He was part of the reason that they were completely cold.
Totally, and I think Harden as much as at times he shows up, and I mean he looks good. He looks good in spurts. I mean, his overall playoff medal and kind of like his I guess like his reliability is in question. And we've seen that in years past of Harden flaming out epically last year. This one, yeah, this game, I mean, there was a lot of factors going in, but yeah, I mean, Harden definitely didn't bring his A game. I think another thing about the Rockets' style of play, which you can kind of see this entire series, is when they're hitting shots, it looks beautiful, and it's like, oh wow, this team looks unstoppable. But then it's just a make or miss league, and I think when you see them miss shots, like, God, this is a horrible team. Like, how are they this bad? It's just when they're making shots, they look amazing. When they don't, they look pretty terrible, and that's kind of been the Rockets all year. And I think the one factor that we'll get to right now is I think that the X factor that really took them over the top and kind of allowed for those periods where they got cold in the leadership, that came from Chris Paul, and that's what you saw in games 4 and 5 this series, and I think that's what was missing down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing like a post-mortem on the Rockets right now and like everything, but if CP3, I mean, if he didn't get hurt, like I really thought the Rockets like had the Warriors, like they figured out the Warriors, like they had their number. They were completely beating up the Warriors with like all the down screens and everything. They were like holding them, and the refs weren't calling everything. They were so physical. And I think in Game 7, like when they were missing those 27 straight threes, there's no way. Like if CP3 was there, he would have been like, guys, no, like stop shooting threes. Like let's just go to the rim, get fouled. Or like CP3 is awesome at that mid range. He would at least taken some mid range attempts, and that's really where they missed Paul. And if he was healthy, like maybe we're talking about like the Rockets and how like they finally figured out they were the first team to beat the Warriors, but here we are.
Exactly. I think even if you look at all those missed threes, the game was still within 10 points by the end. And it was within shooting, like they were within range of coming back. I think Chris Paul like would have changed the tempo of the game down the stretch. He would have taken control, kind of. You saw in games 4 and 5 how like those games were very tight. He kind of like dictated the pace of the game, had some incredible shots he hit. Like the shot making by Chris Paul when buckets were needed was like unparalleled. Some of the shots he was hitting were just like unbelievable, like double clutch threes. He would have found a way to will this team. I think I think Game 7 would at least been a one possession game down this. Like it would have been like a nail biter down the stretch if Paul had been in the game. And I mean, it's the Warriors. I mean, the Warriors are a really good team. They play really well. I mean, but there's always a lot like luck involved in championship. And this run, I mean, what everyone's gonna question down the stretch is, I mean, the first year no Kyrie. The first year, now it's year 4. The first year they run no Kyrie. The second year they didn't get it done. The third year they didn't make it through Kawhi with Kawhi in that series. With the Spurs, we don't know if they made it through that. And this year CP3. So there's always those question marks.
Yeah, I mean, with these things, luck is always involved, right? Like the Warriors, 3 out of these 4 years, the team that they're facing had the major injury, and the 1 year they didn't win was when Steph was injured, and then of course Draymond with the suspension. So the luck kind of went against the Warriors' way that year. Mm-hmm. So I mean, we break down basketball to like the closest thing, but sometimes it's just like, who's more lucky?
Lucky shot, and it's the make or miss league. Shots go in, shots don't. And I mean, it comes down to that, especially when you go 7 games. And I mean, we had some special series last in the conference finals, both going to Game 7. First time since the 1970s that's happened. And I mean, it was a lot of fun basketball to watch. And I mean, and the NBA is like having a field day with this.
Oh yeah, I mean, 2 Game 7s, that's the ultimate for them. And then now they got Warriors-Cavs again, so the ratings are still going to be great. Exactly.
I mean, there's a lot of lamenting on people. There's a lot of lamenting for new blood in the finals and stuff. But at the end of the day, I mean, if you look at history, I mean, the game's biggest stars always show up. And people want to watch the game's biggest stars in the NBA finals. And I think, I mean, coming out of the East and the West, I mean, in terms of conference representation, you have the world. Basically, again, for the 4th straight time, you have the world's best player pitted against the world's best team.
Yep, exactly. All right, so like coming to this series, right? I think I was texting you the other day about how, and you thought I was using some reverse psychology, but you thought like how like the Cavs may actually have a chance. I was telling you like, I really do think they have a shot in this series against the Warriors, even though no one believes it. They're like, oh, Warriors in 4 and everything, or the gentlemen sweep Warriors in 5. Mm-hmm. But so just hear me out really quick. So number 1, Iguodala is out. I mean, we don't know when he's coming back. Like, so he sought the dreaded second opinion for his knee injury. So we always know that's not a good thing. That means that he's been through the Warriors team docs, and they probably told him you're good to go. But he still is not feeling right, like the whole Kawhi situation, like kind of thing. So now he's seeking a second opinion. And we know like Iguodala is the best. He's been their best defender on LeBron these past 3 years. No doubt about it. So now Iguodala, we don't know if he's playing. And remember the 2015 finals when the Cavs were undermanned, and then it was basically LeBron and like they were playing like Tristan Thompson and Mozgov together, and like Delly, and the way they really were able to take like they had a 2-1 lead, and then the Warriors ultimately figured it out. But the way they were able to do it is just we're gonna surround LeBron with some shooters, some big men who'll just get offensive rebounds all day, and could maximize the number of possessions, slow the game down to a grind, and play like amazing defense and just try to beat the Warriors up, like try to hold them, like try to get away with it because the refs aren't going to call as many fouls. And I mean they could pull off a similar game plan in this series. Like I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that the Warriors are going to win.
Sure. I mean, I think all those are valid points. I think yeah. But the thing, I mean, yeah, to be optimistic about the Cavs, I mean, there's still not enough firepower, but they have played the Cavs defense at times like has been atrocious, but at times I've been like, wow, actually they're actually swarming and like getting to the ball, they're switching on everything and kind of just like they got after it at times in the Celtics series. And yeah, I mean, one optimistic thing is the Celtics were actually the number 1 ranked defense and they made it through that team. So in terms of that, I mean, you could be optimistic that I guess the rest of the Cavs team could play a little bit better than they did in the previous season. They'll have to play a lot better to kind of have any shot against the Warriors. And I mean, if the supporting cast kind of is able to show up a little bit more and kind of hit more of their shots. I mean, they were shooting atrocious numbers from three, even in Game 7, the entire series on the road. But if those guys show up, like the J.R. Smiths, Jordan Clarksons, those kind of guys that aren't always on, they show up on the road a couple games, there's a chance, but I mean it's unlikely, man. I mean LeBron has to shoulder a huge load, and there's just at the end of the day I think there's just too much firepower in the Warriors, and I don't know, like last year when I was watching, even with the Kyrie, it was like when LeBron stepped off the floor, even through the rest of these playoffs, like it's like the Cavs team, like where do they go for any reliable offense, or like where do they run their sets through? And that's kind of my question, I guess, down if it goes for a long series, and it just even though the Warriors aren't as deep, the Cavs are a lot less deep. So I think that's kind of the math that kind of gets me, like, how are they going to win this series?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, LeBron, will he have enough gas is the biggest question. So I saw this stat. Last year, through the whole playoffs till Game 5 of the NBA Finals, they had played 18 games because they had 2 sweeps and then 2 series in 5 games. So they played 18 games. And LeBron played 744 minutes through the end of the finals last year. Whereas this year, just to get to the finals, it's taken them 18 games, and LeBron's played 743 minutes. So it's pretty much like he's already played the same number of games and pretty much same number of minutes to just get to the finals as he did for the entire playoffs last year, part because they just had a more difficult time getting through the Eastern Conference this year. So, I mean, this guy, like, you never doubt him. I'm sure, like, he's, like, in his hyperbaric chamber right now. Like, he drinks that magical wine. Like, he's doing everything he can to make sure his body's ready. Like, that's the one thing I admire about LeBron. Like, he'll never admit, like, he'll never use being tired as an excuse because he knows, like, he's got to be there for this team.
Exactly. But, yeah, I mean, I think there is a chance, but it's gonna be tough. I'll have to see how it kind of shapes out, and I need to see how this team shows up on the road in games 1 and 2 in Oracle. And I mean, and actually, I mean, to be honest, the Rockets kind of did reveal a blueprint for how to kind of slow down the Warriors a bit. I mean, if you kind of interchange CP3 with LeBron and kind of try to run, if the Cavs play their best defense that they played in spurts this playoffs, the other guys start hitting some more shots. And like they're able to steal one on the road. This could be a series, but it's like a lot of ifs. So I mean, there's a chance. I mean, you can't count. I don't think you can count them out entirely, but it's like, I mean, this would be unfathomable if the Warriors like lost the series.
Yeah, I mean, as much as we hate KD for like getting to the Warriors, I think we got to give some credit to the Warriors as an organization, right? Because they realize like we can't just get complacent. Like the problem with a lot of these teams, and sometimes we see with dynasties, is that they get complacent and they're happy with the team that they have when they're successful, and they don't look to improve upon it. The Warriors, like, this is a 73-win team, so their team was complete. Like, it was good the way it was, but they're like, they were like, we're gonna go out and get the second best player in the world, which is any team would do, but they're like, why not? Because we know we're gonna have challenges coming up. Our core is getting older with Steph, Clay, Draymond, and let's get KD.
Absolutely, they got themselves. Oh, no worries. They got themselves the ultimate security blanket. And I mean, any organization would do that in that situation. I mean, you got to give your hats off to the Warriors for getting him. But yeah, I mean, it's just we lament it more from a competitive standpoint. Like, I mean, it's like every year, it's like, you know, it's gonna be the Warriors there unless something else happens. But I mean, yeah, well, I mean, I think. KD is going to be needed this finals as well, because I mean there is no one in the East. Even this year we saw there's no one in the East to match up with LeBron per se, like just with LeBron. And I think Kevin Durant gives the Warriors that piece to match up with LeBron offensively and to some extent defensively. And Iguodala, I mean, having more bodies like Iguodala like makes it even harder on LeBron. But even just having KD in the series, compared to so you were comparing this finals run part 4 to part 1. In part 1 there was no KD. It was an inexperienced Warriors team. Inexperienced Warriors team against like a Cavs team that probably had. You can argue which Cavs part 1 or this Cavs team has more talent, but that's the thing. I think KD it's funny to call the second best player or third best player in the world an X factor, but he's going to be the difference once again in these finals, I think, and he's going to kind of elevate this team to another level that the Warriors wouldn't have been able to achieve previously.
Yeah, you know what? That's a very good point. I didn't realize. Yeah, I mean, 2015, like this is before the Warriors had won 2 championships, so they hadn't done it yet, and they didn't have Kevin Durant. So,
but
yeah,
the only thing that gives me confidence, I think, is that I mean, this, regardless of what happens this year, I mean, like, dude, like year 15, LeBron has been something special to watch. I mean, we've always talked about for years, like, dude, if LeBron got his jump shot down, if LeBron started hitting threes consistently, like, he's going to be unstoppable. In year 15, he's finally gotten to that point where it's like, wow, he's a knockdown shooter, and like, you can trust his jumper is going to show up like 5 games out of 6 in a series. So it's like he himself, that alone will kind of like keep the Cavs somewhat competitive, but it's like, yeah, it's going to come down to those third quarter runs, like those spurts the Warriors make, and how the Cavs respond to those, and whether they have enough to kind of contain that, like for 4 games, which is a tall order for any team. No one's been able to consistently do that in the past 2 years, not really in the past 3 or 4 even, except for that one series. So I mean, the Warriors have only lost 1 series in the last 4 years. So I mean, that's like, just let that sink in.
Yeah, it's LeBron's just something else. The fact that you're 15 and he's still at this level of play, it's truly remarkable.
Exactly.
And I can't wait. I mean, once these finals are done, then we could do a pod or just talk about where LeBron's what's his next move gonna be, which is gonna be exciting. For
sure. And now, I mean, I guess going into predictions, we basically kind of talked about it and kind of what I was hinting at. I'd say I think the Cavs kind of will rise to the occasion a little bit, but it's not going to be enough. And I mean, being a LeBron fan and wanting to see as much basketball as possible, I'll say Warriors in 6, which is my initial prediction going into the playoffs. In my bracket in our group, I have Warriors beating the Cavs in 6, and I'm going to stick with that. I think that's an admirable season for LeBron. I mean, that's an admirable effort. I think that's what they're going to go down with, and I think, I don't see them winning more than 2, even in the best case scenario.
Yeah, I mean, so I was going to say Warriors in 6, but I just don't see LeBron. So Game 6 is going to be in Cleveland. Mm-hmm. I don't know if LeBron's going to let the Warriors come into his house and let them win another championship, just like in 2015. So I think but then I was like, that's going to mean Warriors in 7. So I'm going to go with the Warriors in 7, but then I was like, damn, that means I'm predicting against LeBron in a Game 7.
Yeah, so in that light, the Warriors want to make the series end as quickly as possible and don't want to extend this, because the later the series goes, LeBron does some incredible things. And I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Game 6, that's what I was thinking too. But Game 7, as you saw at the Celtics, you can be undefeated on your home floor. Every stat line can go against him, but this guy may just find a way in that game to get it done. So I'd say
never bet against LeBron in Game 7.
Yeah, and maybe Game 6 Clay or something goes off in Cleveland and just finishes them off, something like that's what I was envisioning, something like that. I'd say maybe the Cavs steal one on the road in the first 2, if that's in the best case scenario. Then the Warriors steal one back, and then they steal one back in Game 6 and win the series. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
all right, dude. It was good talking to you.
Yeah, good talking to you, man. And looking forward to another NBA Finals. I can't believe we're here again. It's that time of year.
Yeah, the best time. Enjoy LeBron, man.
Thanks, man. All right. See you around.
All right.
Bye.
See you, dude.